Population forecasting, like weather forecasting, is a complex, scientifically based process. Using data from many sources, models are tested and retested to figure out what things influence our local population to grow. Why do we do it? The more we know about our future, the better we can prepare for it. Population forecasting helps us plan ahead for meeting our needs like roads, schools, jobs, housing, and land. In 1995, the Oregon State Legislature gave counties the responsibility for doing these critical population forecasts, but with no additional funding or resources. So some counties have been successful since then in maintaining and coordinating the forecasts, while others have not. So what happens when the forecasts aren't done? Cities that need those numbers to responsibly increase their land supply don't have them, and many are now getting close to using up their land within their urban growth boundaries. Without current, accurate data, cities cannot complete the plans we know we are required to carry out and need for fulfilling our responsibilities to prepare our communities for the future. A new population forecasting concept has been developed to ensure that forecasts are completed in a timely manner statewide. I'm your host today, Kathy Clark. I'm a city councilor for the city of Kaiser. Here with me today to tell us about this concept are Jim Rue, the director of the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, and Linda Ludwig, the deputy legislative director for the League of Oregon Cities. Welcome, Jim and Linda.
I'm Linda Ludwig, deputy legislative director at the League of Oregon Cities, and I'm here today with Jim Rue, the director of Department of Land Conservation and Development, and we're here to talk to you about an important legislative concept for the 2013 legislative session about population forecasting. First, though, I'd like Jim to talk about a couple of other urban management concepts that the governor will be introducing that will work together with the population forecasting concept and complement it.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't think I have to tell anyone that the process of expanding an urban growth boundary has gotten to be too expensive and take far too long, costing communities critical resources that they could use for economic development, schools, or other uses within the community. So to that end, the governor's office has convened a group of people, about 50 people plus or minus, to work with DLCD, my Department of Land Conservation and Development, to streamline and design a new process by which communities can add lands to their urban growth boundary. I do want to say at the outset that the process will preserve the primary goals of our land use system, and that is to protect working farms and forests while also creating livable, vibrant communities. So this stakeholder group has now been meeting for several months, and out of that process, we have developed 4 land use concepts that will be moved forward to the legislative session in early 2013. The first is population forecasting, and Linda's going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I want to set a little context because, as Kathy said at the outset, anything that a community wants to do in terms of its UGB depends upon getting a good, timely, and accurate forecast. The first of those, of course, is to make sure that there's enough land for people to live, for people that may be coming to the community. So the first concept focuses on residential growth. The second is jobs for the people who live in the community. And we're looking at a variety of employment land concepts, not just lands within the UGB, but also a trial approach at regional land concepts, suggesting that people move from their homes to their jobs and they're not always staying just within one community. And the last concept is focused on infrastructure in communities and asking communities to first look at the cost of supplying streets and sewers and water within the current UGB before looking to the outside to bring in new lands. It also focuses on governance of those lands outside of the UGB and how it could be better served. So we're anticipating 4 bills. We're in the latter stages of writing those legislative concepts right now, and they will very quickly move to the legislature for introduction in early 2013.
So let's talk a little bit about population forecasting. Cities are required to use population forecasts to update their comprehensive plans and to update other associated planning analysis, such as the transportation system plans, their capital improvement plans. They really are the beginning point for decisions regarding growth management. Obtaining them in a timely manner has been difficult for a majority of cities for a lot of reasons. Counties outside of the metro region are required by law to provide cities with population forecasts on an ongoing basis. Unfortunately, this has not occurred uniformly across the state, and it has been troubling for many cities, particularly faster-growing cities. Also, the monetary costs of complying with the existing system are very substantial, and we all know that our city planning resources are declining. Adding to those costs are the frequency of litigation. Those litigations have skyrocketed, and many forecasts are challenged either initially or as a part of a subsequent land use action. And as Jim has noted, other changes to our urban growth boundary process will require a number that is non-appealable that our population concept will provide cities.
So, thank you, Linda. As we mentioned earlier, the governor called together a group of people to form a stakeholder group to begin to draft some of this legislation. And those participants include the League of Oregon Cities, the Association of Oregon Counties, the Governor's Office, DLCD, Oregon Home Builders, Thousand Friends of Oregon, OAPA, and other individual cities and counties, and lastly, the Population Research Center at Portland State University. So, the concept is basically a 4-legged stool. As Linda suggested, one of the features most troubling to the current system is the frequency of appeal. If a community chooses to use the forecast from Portland State, that is the third party, then that city will not be subject to appeal. So let me restate that because that is an absolutely critical point. If a community accepts Portland State's project or population forecast, that forecast will not be appealable. It is also important that cities get this forecast frequently. And so we are proposing that these forecasts will come to each city and each county every 4 years. So each year, Portland State will issue forecasts for approximately 9 counties and the cities within them. And then the last point that I want to make is that these new forecasts will be fully paid for by the state of Oregon. In the past, cities and counties have done their own individual forecasts that have over time become increasingly more expensive. So we are proposing to replace those costs to the community and have it done entirely by the state.
So Jim, what you're saying there, then that under this new concept, these forecasts will not be subject to appeal, which is a huge benefit for cities. And cities and counties will receive new forecasts every 4 years. I know that currently even cities that are receiving forecasts from their counties oftentimes don't see those but for every 10 years or 12 years. And they don't necessarily capture new investments by that city that are made into the community or new policies that are adopted by that community. So this 4-year cycle is very important for cities in order to capture anything new that's occurring within the community that then would be reflected in the population forecast. So let me drill down a little bit more because this concept has more details, more elements to it. As Jim noted, the first round of forecasts will occur over a 4-year period. Approximately a quarter of a state will receive a forecast for the first 4 years. We've heard a lot about, from our communities, the desire to have a local process associated with these forecasts. So there'll be a local process with multiple opportunities for input, for data input and other types of input from cities, from counties, from citizens in your community. There will be a challenge process. This is not a land use appeal process, but a challenge process that will occur through the Population Research Center at Portland State that will enable a city, a county, or a citizen that doesn't feel that the population forecast number is accurate to be able to question that and challenge that at the Population Research Center. We wanted to ensure that this was a very quick period of time, that it would occur quickly so that a city could begin to use that number as soon as they would want to. So the legislation will have a 60-day challenge process within it. Also, very, very important was flexibility for cities and counties. When should a city or county begin to use a new population forecast number? So the legislation will have 3 flexible phase-in options for that to occur. Let me talk about those a little more in detail. So a city could utilize its forecast as soon as they receive it, as soon as it is finalized. Or if a city already has an adopted forecast, the city could wait until a second round forecast is finalized. So that would be 4 years later. Or if a city already has an adopted forecast number that they're utilizing within a land use task or action, that city could continue to use that forecast number until that land use action was completed.